Welcome to Game Data. With Samsung set to announce their next round of foldables on August 10th, I figured now would be a great time for a final follow-up video on the Z Fold 3. Specifically, what's it been like to use as my primary device for almost a year? I've taken it on road trips, used it to shoot video, emulated a bunch of consoles, and a ton of other more generic everyday tasks. It's my go-to computer right now, and I really appreciate how well it's served me while it's sat in my pocket. But there are a few quirks that I feel are worth noting, and I hope they're all solved by the Z Fold 4 that I inevitably trade my phone in for. I don't think it's spoiling anything I haven't already said in previous videos to tell y'all this is a very capable computer, sitting at the top 1% of smartphones available, both in performance and in price. Or at least it was back when it came out. As usual, newer phones with better processors have since released. Hell, the Galaxy S22 Ultra resurrected the Note line and potentially created a more compelling purchase for folks really looking for a Samsung experience on their smartphone, considering it's a bit less bulky than the Fold and has fewer compromises to the S Pen experience. The competition's also been heating up in the folding screen space, with Oppo's Find N really sparking folks' hope for small to large foldables that fit easily into their hands. And companies like Vivo and Huawei have updated their foldable lines to at least be on par with the Fold 3. Unfortunately, Oppo and most of the other competition in the folding phone space are not available in the US. Here, it's mainly Samsung's market, with some whispers of Microsoft and Motorola floating in the background. So, by default, for better or for worse, the Fold 3 is really the most performant foldable smartphone currently available in the US. And, that's not entirely a bad thing, considering how capable this phone still is. I mean, I think I'd really feel left out if all of these cool phones were that much more powerful than the Fold 3. But in reality, I've gotten such an incredible amount of use with my phone over the past year. I've never really experienced anything that made the performance dip. Everything's felt incredibly smooth, even as I've recorded 4K footage, had multiple apps open at once, or cast Samsung DeX to various monitors. It's gotten kind of warm on occasion during sustained loads, but it's always felt incredibly snappy. Whenever I need to get something done on the go, my Fold 3 hasn't let me down once. Plus, using that inner display has remained more than a delight. With hundreds of articles and comics chapters read on the 7-inch 4x3 display, it's as great to look at today as the day I first powered it on, even if a bit difficult to clean sometimes. That's really bolstered by the invisible under-display camera, which I still haven't really used. It just kind of gets out of the way, and the way that the crease disappears when stared at straight on also helps to keep a very clean appearance. That has made it my favorite screen to watch videos and browse the web on when on the go. Plus, I don't think I've found a better device for reading restaurant menus while eating out. I just love the amount of space it all affords me to get stuff done, and it's still the only phone where Samsung's split screen implementations have actually made sense to me. Switching to Gboard after my last follow-up has even made editing scripts or typing longer posts more comfortable. At least, enough that I can do a bit of work without too many gripes. I still prefer the ergonomics of the Duo 2 whenever I really need to write for a while on a mobile device, but I'm happy the Fold 3 has grown on me over time. Unfortunately, the outer screen is still pretty terrible for a typing experience, but most of the time, I'm only using that screen for short bursts anyway, especially when walking. Its longer form factor is still fantastic in the way that I can use it with one hand, particularly with Niagara Launcher installed. I've had multiple instances in which the size and gripability have really clicked and been more comfortable than other phones. All of what I've mentioned so far covers about 80% of what I personally care about in my day-to-day usage. I enjoy a phone that's just as good to watch videos on as it is to create spreadsheets to track my t-shirt sales over time. It's enough for me to say that I'd recommend this phone for anyone looking for a cheaper version of the Fold 4 in a few weeks, because it does so much right, especially if you're like me and can get a ton of practical use out of that large inner display. However, that recommendation really comes with a footnote mentioning that prospective buyers should know that this device is full of compromises. It's capable of a lot, but it also feels like some trade-offs were made which haven't fared well over time. For a primary example of things that haven't fared well over time, the outer screen. While I was optimistic about it previously and willing to overlook some faults since it showed improvement from previous Fold devices, it's kind of become a nuisance. Like I said, while walking or in short bursts, using the outer screen is more than adequate. The length feels good to use one-handed, and the width is good for maintaining a grip on it. But when I'm sitting down and need to use the phone for more than a few minutes, it feels more and more cramped over time. On Twitter and Tumblr, images are scaled to be smaller to fit on the display, and lines of text wrap a lot quicker. One day, I wanted to read a story on our no sleep and was feeling a bit too lazy to open up the device, and the screen just made the story feel so much more cumbersome than it needed to be. To feel comfortable, the outer screen really needs to be about as wide as a Galaxy S22, especially considering how thick this narrow display feels in the hand. As much as I'd like to say this was all fixed by that fantastic inner screen, because I just use that all the time instead, I really can't say that. The first reason is because the hinge still feels a bit stiff a year later. It doesn't take a ton of effort to open the device, but it definitely takes more than something like the Duo, meaning I can't just absentmindedly open the device up. There's a slight bit of effort that needs to be exerted, which isn't fantastic. I can't say I'd prefer the hinge to be loose or anything, given that debris still needs to be kept away from that fragile inner screen, but I'd rather be a bit more carefree with my usage. Which also plays into the second reason, battery life. Battery life is still great overall, with a full day of usage being the norm. However, having the phone open does deplete the battery faster. If it's 9 p.m., the phone has 20% battery life, and I want to read some short stories for the rest of the night, reading on the inner screen means reaching for a charger well before bedtime, which is inconvenient considering how slowly the Fold charges overall. From almost dead, the battery with its 25-watt charging speed can take about 2 hours to charge to almost full on a fast charger. That's fine for overnight charging, but hasn't been fantastic when needing to charge late at night or in the middle of the day. I've had more than a few days when I forgot to charge overnight, needed to quickly charge in the morning, and ended up having to leave my house with a 60% charge. It's not great. While I'm not entirely convinced every phone needs 120-watt fast charging or anything, my experience with the Fold 3 tells me that Samsung's phones at least need more than 25 watts to address my current hassles. If you've been paying attention, I haven't mentioned gaming at all yet, and I didn't really mention it in my last follow-up either. That's mostly because it's kind of become less interesting to game on the Fold 3 over time. Now, don't get me wrong, that big screen is great, and even the outer screen has some novelty as a Game Boy Micro clone. It's all just kind of inconvenient. Touch controls are unsatisfying on the Glastic screen, which has really not made me eager to use it by itself for emulation or cloud streaming. That means if I wanted to play games, I'd want to use it with a controller. I tried carrying an 8-bit Do controller around for a while, and Again, it's fairly inconvenient to prop the Fold up somewhere and connect a controller just to play a quick game. And while it's totally possible for me to strap on a GameSir X2, it's still kinda an extra thing to carry around, and I don't feel particularly confident squeezing the sides of the device with a spring-loaded clip. I do have a switch-sized controller clip that screws down, which seems better for the health of the device, but it's still extremely bulky. There's really no way to win in this scenario. What's doomed it even more are the additional devices I could be using instead. I think there are plenty of people who will have the best possible time working around the limitations of the Fold 3's awkward size, but it's hard to justify the effort for me when the Duo 2 feels better for touch controls, and I have both a Steam Deck and an analog pocket ready to use at any time. Very few people actually have all these devices available at once. I totally get it, but the Android Power retro handheld market is still pretty great at the low end, and more affordable Linux handhelds are coming out each month. I guess I'm trying to say that if you're looking to get a device like the Fold 3 specifically for emulation, you gotta account for the fact that it's a bit awkward and will need more effort to work around than a more standard sized phone, which you could slot into a Razer Kishi, or even getting something much cheaper, built specifically for emulation. Now, to bring this all together, 1 year in and the Fold 3 still feels extremely capable and versatile. I think anyone who works from their phone, reads a ton, or just wants a more portable Android tablet will love this device. Regardless of the features offered by the next Fold, this is still a pretty solid purchase, especially as it inevitably ages a little and drops in price. Still, it's important to note that there are some additional compromises baked into the experience. The outer screen has felt more awkward over time, and the reality of using the inner screen is a drain on battery life. Plus, it's kinda hit or miss whether certain non-productivity experiences will be as polished as on more standard phones. I mean, at this point, it's clearer than ever that Samsung still has some work to do on the design overall. Not necessarily the quality, but how it feels to live with the device for a long time. I'm happy enough with the Fold 3 that I've no problem trusting another year to the next Fold, but we're still a few steps away from having something as polished as the Galaxy S line. But those are my thoughts. What are yours? Have you also been living with the Fold 3 for a while? Do you have any features or design tweaks you'd like to see in the future? Let me know down in the comments. Also, if you found this video helpful or informative, go ahead and click that like button just to let me know. Plus, make sure to get subscribed for more tech and video game content in the future. If you're looking for more info on foldables, go ahead and check out our previous videos on the ZTE Axon M and the Surface Duo 2. Both are actually really cool devices that turned out to be much cooler for emulation than the Fold 3, but that's all for this video. Until next time, catch you later.